as one of the central characters in what's considered by many among the greatest games ever made, and as the character that takes center stage in probably the most iconic and shocking scene in that game. Aerith has a special place in the hearts of millions. Soon she will return to the zeitgeist when Final Fantasy VII Remake launches, and we're probably going to learn even more about her as the game expands upon the story told in the original heavily. Before that happens, in this feature we're going to take a look back at what's come before and recount the full story of Aerith from beginning to end. Of course, there's the very real possibility that many of you might be going into the remake without having played the original, and thus not really knowing how her story plays out, so when we get to that point in our recap, we'll give you a spoiler warning. So with all that out of the way, let's get started. Perhaps the most important thing to know about Aerith before we head into her story is the nature of her birth, which is the reason many of the most important events in Final Fantasy VII even happen at all. She is the child of one Professor Gast Faramis, formerly of Shinra, and more importantly, Ifalna, a woman who was before her death the last pure Cetra on Gaia. What's a Cetra, you might ask? Also known as the Ancients, they're ancient civilization of people that have been slowly dwindling from the planet over time. They have a deeply spiritual connection with the planet and its life stream, which is an immensely powerful source of spiritual energy, and this connection allows them to have powers and abilities not found in regular humans. Lifestream, as you can imagine, is a valuable resource, but also unsurprisingly, in the industrial world of Gaia, it has also been turned into an actual energy source. The world-dominating Shinra Electric Power Company, for instance, uses and harnesses Lifestream constantly. When harnessed, it is known as Mako, and they have harnessed so much of Mako that they're now actively hurting the planet, its ecology, and its very source of life. In their drive to keep on doing that with nary a care in the world about what it does to Gaia and its future, they've also set their sights on some grand plans. One of these is the Neo Midgar Project, a semi-mythical land from Cetra legends known as the Promised Land that is said to be the source of an endless stream of Lifestream. And Shinra, having figured out how to harness it and use it, see that location, if it is real, as a source of limitless Mako. The company hopes to find this location and build a new city around it, Neo Midgar. They also understand that only one with the powers of Cetra can lead them to the Promised Land. That's actually how Aerith's parents first met. Ilfana, a Cetra, had been discovered and captured by Shinra, and Gast, before leaving the company, had helped her escape before the two then had a child. Within 20 days of Aerith's birth, however, disaster strikes. Professor Hojo, the mastermind behind most of Shinra's greatest scientific advancements, tracks down Gast and Ilfana. He orders Gast killed and takes Ilfana and Aerith captive, bringing them back to Shinra, where they both go on to be the subjects of many tests and experiments. The two remain in captivity for 7 years following that. When the two finally manage to escape, things don't exactly go smoothly. During their escape attempt, Ilfana is mortally wounded. The two of them manage to make it to the station in Sector 7 of Midgar, where they chance upon a woman named Elmira Gainsborough, who happens to be waiting at the station for the return of her husband, who's gone off to fight a war for Shinra. What she doesn't know yet is that her husband is dead. Before Ilfana succumbs to her wounds and dies, she asks Elmira to take Aerith and care for her, and that is exactly what she does. She adopts the little girl and goes on to raise her as her own daughter. For many years hence, Aerith and Elmira live while trying to hide the former's identity, her unique powers, and her Cetra origins, and that's not always an easy task. Aerith's abilities often bubble to the surface, and she often still hears the planet and its life stream, but continues to fight hard to push it back down, denying her heritage. One very important person she makes a friend out of in the years preceding Final Fantasy VII is Zack Fair, who is part of Shinra's soldier program. Zack first encounters Aerith by chance during one of his assignments after he finds her caring for him following an injury, and the two quickly become closely bonded, and it is a friendship they maintain for many years hence, right up until Zack's untimely death. It is because of Zack's encouragement, in fact, that Aerith essentially becomes the flower girl we all know her as. With Midgar being the center of Shinra's power and being the place where they're at their most active in terms of sucking up Lifestream from the planet and turning it into Mako energy, it is also a place where the land is dying. farming. Things don't grow in and around Midgar, but Aerith maintains a patch of flowers that she ensures remains healthy and vibrant. She often takes flowers from this patch up to different regions of Midgar to sell them to people. It's during one of her trips to sell flowers that she has her fateful first encounter with none other than Cloud Strife. This is where we're going to begin talking about the events of Final Fantasy VII, so if you've never played that game before and want to head into the remake without having its story spoiled for you, this is where you should stop watching. Still here? Alright, let's get on with it. By the time Final Fantasy VII begins, Shinra's efforts to capture Aerith for her Cetra abilities have become less concentrated. Though they still intend to find the Promised Land and build Neo Midgar around it, their efforts to do so have been distracted owing to their ongoing war with the Wutai, and thus, though the Neo Midgar project is still very much part of their long-term plans, it just isn't something they're wholly focused on right now. In the beginning hours of Final Fantasy VII, after his bombing run of the Sector 1 Mako reactor with the eco-terrorist group Avalanche, while he's running through the city to lose the soldiers on his tail, Cloud bumps into Aerith. His interaction with her here is brief, but it proves to be the foundation of more to come, because later on, after another bombing run on the Sector 5 Mako reactor, which proves to be a failed attempt this time, as Cloud is escaping through the city, he falls into Aerith's bed, right on top of her flower bed. When he awakes, they're soon found by Reno. Reno's intention is to apprehend Aerith and take her back with him. But Cloud intervenes here at her behest, and after fighting off Reno, helps her escape. The two eventually spot Tifa from a distance, and circumstances lead them to believe that she's been taken captive by Don Corneo, a powerful mafia leader who exerts almost complete control over a large section of Sector 6 of Midgar. The two devise a plan to infiltrate Corneo's mansion to rescue Tifa, and when they do finally find her, they find out that she didn't need rescuing at all. No, Tifa had actually placed herself here on purpose, with hopes of learning more about Shinra and its plans from Corneo. And they do get some very valuable information from him too. Corneo tells them that Shinra have discovered where Avalanche are located, and that they have a pretty radical idea for how to deal with the eco-terrorist group's threat. They plan on dropping the entire plate above the sector where Avalanche operates out of, which would destroy not only them but also every single living person in that sector. Cloud, Tifa, Barret, and Aerith attempt to put a stop to Shinra's plans but are unsuccessful. The company drops the plate, killing many people, and in all the chaos that ensues, Aerith is captured and taken to Professor Hojo's lab in the hopes of creating a test subject who might prove even more useful to his experiments, and who of course might turn out to be more helpful to Shinra in its attempts to find the Promised Land. Cloud, Barret, and Tifa, the only surviving members of Avalanche, decide to infiltrate Shinra and rescue Aerith. They fight through many of the company's forces and finally make it to her, where they find her imprisoned alongside a red lion-wolf hybrid-like creature known as Red 13. Avalanche rescues both of them, but after they manage to fight off many of Hojo's experimental monstrous creations, they get captured once again. However, a far greater threat rears its ugly head while they're in captivity together. Sephiroth kicks his twisted plans into motion, which we'll cover in greater detail in a separate feature, and the chaos that erupts sends Shinra and all of Midgar reeling. Shinra's president is killed, while all the imprisoned Avalanche members are also able to escape their cells. After their escape, they decide to pursue Sephiroth to first find out what his end goal is, and then put a stop to it, because whatever it is, it can't be anything good. Their journey takes them all across Gaia, from Mithril Mine to Junon, from Costa del Sol to Gold Saucer, from Gongaga to Cosmo Canyon. Eventually, they finally run into Sephiroth at the Temple of the Ancients, where he reveals the full extent of his plan to them. Sephiroth tells them that the Lifestream is not just an energy source that keeps the planet alive, it's also what Gaia uses to heal itself, and so Sephiroth plans on using the black materia to summon the ultimate form of black magic, Meteor, because after Meteor does its massive damage to the planet, it will then try to heal itself using considerable amounts of Lifestream. In the fight that follows, Cloud, mysteriously being controlled by Sephiroth, loses consciousness, and while unconscious, he's contacted by Aerith. She tells him that as the last Cetra alive on Gaia, she is the only person who can stop Sephiroth. When Cloud finally comes to, he is told by Tifa and Barret that Aerith is gone, but following a number of clues left to him by her in his dream, he manages to track her down to the Forgotten City, which is where things really come to a head. Cloud, Tifa, and Barret find Aerith in a temple below the city at an altar. she summons the ultimate form of white magic, which she intends to counteract Meteor and the devastating damage that might cause. The way to summon is through white materia, which is something that Aerith has always had, a white pearl-like object that she got as an heirloom from her mother before her death. These also proved to be her last moments alive, however, because as Cloud, Tifa, and Barret lay their eyes on Aerith, who is in the pool of water below the city's center, Sephiroth descends from above, and right as he lands, he impales her with his sword, killing her, following which she returns to the life stream. Before she dies, though, she is successfully able to summon Ik, and though its power is being blocked by Sephiroth, once Cloud and company eventually manage to kill him, Ik is able to push Meteor back and save Gaia from destruction. Though Aerith dies at this point, she continues to be a vital part of Final Fantasy VII's story even afterward, right up until the very end of the game. Her summoning is, of course, instrumental in saving the planet from Meteor. In fact, after Sephiroth's death, it is Aerith who, from the lifestream, commands the energy to emerge from the planet and form together to finally be able to push back Meteor. She also encounters Cloud when he finds himself in the lifestream while having an out-of-body experience, and helps him return to his body. Finally, though she doesn't make a lot of very direct appearances, for obvious reasons, in Final Fantasy VII's sequel, the animated movie Advent Children, she continues to have a great presence, mostly because of the guilt Cloud harbors over her death at Sephiroth's hands. With the upcoming Final Fantasy VII Remake, Square Enix have promised that they're going to heavily expand the original game's story, which is obvious because it seems like the only way to expand the Midgar section into a full-fledged Final Fantasy title, the way the upcoming release seems to be doing, when the same region was at most 5 or 6 hours long in the original game. While the game will be keeping the most important story beats of the original intact, the developers have promised that things will be more fleshed out. There will be new scenes, extended sequences to fill in the gaps of the original story, and more, which means we can expect to learn a lot more about many things throughout the story. Might we be learning more about Aerith as well? It's likely that Square will probably want to shed more light on things that didn't get too much screen time in the original game, and Aerith, being one of Final Fantasy VII's most important characters, probably won't fall into that category. Either way, she will be a crucial part of the story, and is going to get a lot of screen time, and we simply cannot wait to see what Square Enix do with her in the remake. Thankfully, we don't have to wait long to find out. And that about does it for this video. If you enjoyed what you watched and want to see more from GamingBolt, please hit the subscribe button. Also, don't forget to switch on the notifications bell icon next to it. That way you'll never miss any of our videos. Thanks for watching.